This is Walt Disney World Today. Give us 5 minutes and we'll give you the world.
It's Wednesday, March 22nd, 2006, and this is episode number 77 of Walt Disney World Today. I'm Matt Hotchkiss from mgmstudios.org. You know what? On today, I'm going to introduce the guest first. That's how big of a guest we have today. We have Mary Waring of MouseSavers.com. Welcome, Mary.
I'm delighted to be here.
We're delighted to have you here as well. We're shoving aside the regular panelists. You're getting first. Your name is in the big lights right now today. And we've also got Mike Scopa of MousePlanet.com. Welcome, Mike.
Just an ordinary day. All at once you're on your way to a place that cannot be. No one knows what turns the key. Where is that from?
Magic
Journeys. Everybody.
And we also have Mike Scopa's duet partner, Mike Newell of Mouse World Radio. Welcome, Mike.
Me. Oh, hi, Matt. How are you?
Next time you do this as a musical, I wish you'd warn me in advance.
Well, it's Wednesday, and that means we're answering our listener questions. So if you'd like your questions answered, email us at questions@wdwtoday.com. And I've picked these questions as I believe they're geared towards Mary's expertise. I could be wrong, but I think that will be good to go with these. So our first question comes from Jeff, who has actually 2 questions. My wife and 13-year-old daughter will be in Orlando for a cheerleading competition in March. They really want, this question obviously is not for Mary, they really want to try Expedition Everest. Will there be any way for them to know if it will be a soft opening on any of the days that they're down there, or do they just have to spend time to go to Animal Kingdom first? In my experience, it's been, there is no way to know ahead of time. You just have to show up, and assuming that the weather is okay, there's no mechanical problems, and Imagineering hasn't called for the ride to be closed for any particular reason, it should be open.
I agree, Matt. I would go into Animal Kingdom, and on the left-hand side, I believe, is guest services. I would go in and ask guest services, and I would also take a walk over to Asia and ask one of the cast members, who's probably standing right on the borderlines, right near the beginning of the attraction, and ask them. Those would be the 2 places that I would gather would know for that particular day. You're absolutely right, though. You'd have to be there that day to find out.
Yep. And the second question that Jeff has, I think, is more up Mary's alley, and that is, when they are there at Walt Disney World, I have advised them to get a 10-day, no-expiration ticket each, since we have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, and plan on week-long Walt Disney World vacations at least 3 or 4 more times over the next 15 years. Would you agree with that plan? I have also signed up for the Mouse Savers newsletter and hope to find good deals for those tickets there instead of at the gates. Well, I'm glad that Jeff is planning 15 years in advance.
Wait until his kids get to be teenagers and want to go to Universal.
Right.
No, actually, that's a very good strategy if you're going to be going only about once a year and don't want to consider an annual pass. Those 10-day tickets do allow you to get the most entrances for your buck, and you could save them and use the remaining days the next year. So those are a good plan.
All right. Our next question comes from Derek of Greenville, South Carolina, who writes, "We're taking a trip in March and using the Magic Your Way Plus dining option. We have one extra meal to choose. If you could choose one restaurant that is not in the park to use for dinner, what would you choose?"
That is not in the park?
That is not in the park.
Did they say where they were staying?
Nope. So let's assume that they're willing to go to the ends of Walt Disney World for a good meal.
So we're looking at a resort restaurant then?
Yeah, or perhaps
Downtown Disney.
Downtown Disney. Yeah, that's an option as well.
Oh, my God. Mary?
Well, we did the dining package last, I think it was November, just to try it out. And 2 of the meals that really stuck in my mind were, and really surprised me, were Wolfgang Puck. I thought we got a tremendous amount of value for our, I believe it was just 1 table service credit that we had to use for that. The food was really outstanding, the service was terrific and everything, and that's the only time I've ever eaten there, so I can't say that's consistently true. the place I consistently eat almost every time I go to Disney World is Artist Point at Wilderness Lodge. It's just our favorite restaurant. If you like something a little bit different, but not too different, if you like meat and potatoes, but with a little twist, it's a great option because they have things like buffalo, which is kind of like beef, but a little different. They have cedar plank salmon is one of their specialties. It's really fabulous. Kind of depends on what type of food you like. There's so many great options out there.
Yeah, I would throw in, if this restaurant is a part of the plan, I would throw in Portobello Yacht Club. I think that would be a good value meal for that plan, if it's on the plan.
I can't remember if it is or not.
That's the question, yeah.
I'm sure our listeners will email us in with all the answers, as they often do. Our next question comes from Chris Eliopoulos of DesperateTimes.com, who writes, "My family has gotten annual passes for the first time this year. Am I allowed to use my card to book a hotel for another family member and get them a discount if I'm not there and they use my credit card? On another note, would we be able to book at a discounted rate and later in the week, when the other family members arrive, get them the discount as well?"
Wow.
So the first part of the
Well,
question...
the answer to the first one is definitely no.
Right.
You do physically have to be present at time of check-in with your annual pass in hand. Now, they don't always ask for the annual pass, but they very well may. And technically, if you're sponsoring someone in a room that you're not physically occupying, you are supposed to be staying in another room at the same time.
Right.
So the idea is for you to be able to bring, family members along with you on your trip. The other thing where they're kind of overlapping is a little, I'm not sure.
Yeah, what was the second part of that question?
The second question was, would we be able to book at a discounted rate? I assume that means the annual pass rate. And later in the week, when the other family members arrive, and get them the rate as well. So I think they want a second room at the same annual pass rate. Is that possible?
You can get up to 3 rooms with your annual pass, as long as you're all staying at the same time, same hotel, checking in together. The annual pass holder has to be there when the people check in. So if he's asking, could his relatives check in first and then he shows up a few days later, no. If he's asking, could he check in and then a couple days later his relatives show up to get another room, maybe. That's a maybe.
Okay. Well, our next question comes from Dave DeRezzo of Granite Bay, California, who writes, "Hi guys, love the show. I recently discovered your podcast, and I flew across the country last week and listened to you the whole way round trip, with some shows still left over. It made for a great trip. Also, for fanatics like me, the notes are great to go back and cut and paste into my own planning notes. For example, where to view parades." So the question that Dave has is, with 3 kids and a parent, a family of 5 on a budget has challenges for on-site lodging. Suites, quote-unquote, it seems, and we seem to find the most economical setup is getting connecting. Why Disney is the only place in the world where adjoining is taken literal and not meaning a door connecting, I'll never know. Rooms at the All-Stars. And staying at the campground seems a little distant from the magic. Are there rooms that accommodate 5 that won't break the bank and end up cheaper than the 2 rooms at the All-Stars?
On the previous show, Mary mentioned the Port Orleans offers sleeping for 5, and that would, to me, that would seem to be a lot less than the suites that are offered at All-Stars.
I think that's true. Yeah, I think that if you stay in Alligator Bayou at Port Orleans Riverside, there are some rooms that have trundle beds. Now, this assumes that your 5th person is a little person, because these trundle beds are not very big. They're, ideal for sort of school-aged kids.
They look like glorified benches to me, personally.
I don't think an adult would want to sleep on one, or even a larger teen. But that is an option, and I believe that might work out to be a little bit cheaper than 2 rooms at
the All-Star
value resorts.
It sounds like perhaps Dave might benefit from staying off-site, given his needs.
If he doesn't mind losing the quote-unquote magic, and, I think there is magic to be found elsewhere, but, people feel differently about that. So it sounded like he was asking about on-site. If he's interested in going off-site, then there are a myriad of options.
Right. Yvette Van Leeuwen of the Netherlands wrote, in episode 64, there was a question over undercovertourist.com. Last year we went to Walt Disney World for the second time and ordered all our tickets. Disney KSC, what's that stand for?
Kentucky
Probably
Fried Chicken.
Kennedy Space Center?
Kennedy Space Center. I knew we had Mary on for a
Kentucky
reason.
Fried Space Center.
Right.
And SeaWorld from Undercover Tourist, and that all went very well. The prices are very good, and we had no problems with all the tickets. I did send a lot of questions by email before, but I booked the tickets, and they all answered the questions patiently and with a lot of care. One thing that was very convenient for us is to send the tickets to our home address in the Netherlands, and they didn't charge anything for it. I think this isn't really a question, more of a comment. But Mary, I was wondering if you could comment on undercovertourist.com in terms of our reliability and all those good things.
They're very reliable. They've been around for several years, and I recently worked out a thing with them where they're offering my newsletter readers special rates that are even a little bit cheaper than what they offer on their regular public website, on certain tickets at least. I think it's on 3 or 4 day tickets that you can save a little extra. And they're really super nice people. I've physically gone out to their location and met them and seen their operation, and I really like the folks that run it.
Would you recommend them over perhaps another third-party ticket vendor?
Well, just in that I know that they're very reliable. I also recommend Ticketmania and have been recommending them for, I think, about 5 years, and they're super reliable as well. It's really, either one, I would have no hesitation in recommending. I've used them both myself, and you don't have to worry about losing your money or anything like that. They've both been around a long time, and they're reliable, and they stand behind their stuff. You know, I've heard some pretty amazing stories. One lady who actually threw away her tickets, knew she threw away her tickets, went back to Ticketmania and said, I know it's my own fault that I threw away the tickets, but will you replace them? Now, mind you, they do not get a nickel back from Disney on lost tickets like that.
Right.
And they replaced her tickets. Luckily, she found them later. But I was amazed. It was like $1,400 worth of tickets. And I just don't think you can ask for better customer service than that. So
Certainly not. Well, our next question comes from Beth Sutton. I probably mispronounced that. I like how I pronounced the woman from the Netherlands correctly, but can't get American names down. But Beth's question is, I saw that the annual pass rates came out for an upcoming May trip that I'll be taking along with some other family members. My sisters and I have been checking for them pretty much every day for quite some time now. We already had our rooms booked for some time ago for a garden view room at the Polynesian, but when we called to have the discounted rate applied, they said that they only had the Magic Kingdom view available, and that was about $600 more after the discount than what I was paying originally. I didn't want to pay more, I want to pay less. They didn't know if garden views would become available at the annual pass rate, but maybe try back in a couple of weeks. Another, never heard of them becoming available. I'm so disappointed that I have to play this hit or miss game. The whole reason I buy the annual pass is to be able to stay at a nice resort for less. Each cast member we spoke to gave a slightly different answer about what it's offered. Why is Disney so selective with annual pass rate offerings?
Well, the short answer is there's only the leftovers. I mean, it's kind of like you're going to the big white sale at the end of the winter,
Right.
at the big department store, and you can choose from the puce sheets or the fluorescent green sheets. If you want white sheets, maybe not so much, because those were popular and they sold them already. So, in all honesty, Disney is not trying to give you their premium rooms at the annual pass rate. You're saving a lot of money, and they're giving you whatever hasn't been sold. So, unfortunately, even though you have a certain room type held, at the point where you call and try to apply that discount, they're only going to offer you what's available in their inventory at that point. It's not like you're just rolling over whatever you were already holding. You're starting from scratch, essentially. So they're going to probably usually have available some of the more expensive room types, because those tend not to sell as quickly as the less expensive ones.
Do the when Disney selects the rooms that are held for annual pass rates, do they take a batch of rooms and then that's it, and that's the pool you have to work with, or do they modify them as time goes on?
It does appear that they modify them. Exactly how that system works is not totally clear to me, but I do know, I've experienced it myself. You might call one day, they say, nope, no Magic Kingdom view rooms. The next day you call and they got them. An hour later you might call and they've got them. So persistence really does pay off. If you're willing to keep calling every day, you might very well get exactly the room type and view that you want. Because apparently as people release unwanted rooms, maybe they've double booked, they've canceled their vacation or whatever, they do apparently move some of those, if they have excess room inventory, they do move some of those into the discounted inventory pool.
Great. Well, our last question today comes from Sharon of Ocala, Florida, who writes, do you know if Disney World would ever consider payment options for tickets like the annual pass or season passes? I have a friend who I have been trying to get a seasonal pass for, but she has 3 children and her husband that she would also need to buy for. She told me the other day that she was going to buy them from the other big named park in Orlando because they can make payments on them. I can't imagine going anywhere else. Is it true that the other, I assume this means Universal she's talking
Yes.
about, they do offer payment options?
Universal does offer payment options. I think you can pay monthly, and it's not very much a month when you spread out 100 and their annual passes are less expensive too.
Sure.
So yeah, that is an option, and Disney has not offered that.
Any inclinations that perhaps Disney might consider such an option?
I haven't heard anything about that.
I guess perhaps, Sharon, I mean, you could invest if you really wanted to. You could try to find 0% APR, and whether that's, usually they're offered for 6 months, give or take, and you could spread it out over that. That's an option.
I have heard of people, especially when they're buying for a family, buying those initial vouchers for their family members spread out over time, because the vouchers don't become activated until you actually visit for the first time and take them up and get them traded in for the real annual pass. So for some people, it takes some of the sting out of it to buy one this month, and then a couple months later buy one for little Johnny, and then a couple months later buy one for Dad, and so on. And then when you actually go on your trip, you trade them all in for your annual passes. Of course, then your renewals are all going to come due at the same time, assuming you're all traveling together. So that helps on the first buy, but on the renewals it doesn't help.
Great. Well, that's it for us today. This has been episode number 77 of Walt Disney World Today. If you want to find older episodes, read our show notes, or send us your comments, visit the Walt Disney World Today website at www.wdwtoday.com. You can also email us at questions@wdwtoday.com. For Len Testa, Mike Scoble, Mike Newell, and Mary Waring of mousesavers.com, I'm Matt Hochberg. We'll see you on the next show.